My name is William Howard. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of a healthcare data analytics company in Austin, Texas. I'm 57 years old. I'm originally from the state of Nebraska, right in the center of the United States, but I've lived in Austin now for about 23 years. I've been working with Ukrainians since June of 2013, and over the last almost 10 years, I've really grown to love the Ukrainian people and Ukraine and the history and the culture. Just love being there. And of course, the events and the invasion and the war that started in February was very upsetting to me. And like many other people around the world, I started helping by raising money for Ukraine. And I developed a network that we could distribute these funds for things that were needed by people like the frontline soldiers, or maybe people even helping in around Lviv, which is where I mainly work. But as the war progressed, I wanted to do more than just raise money, and to really get my hands dirty, as we say here, and really getting on the ground and doing the work myself. So that's kind of how that all evolved. I can't say that it was fun to see the destruction that was caused by the Russians, and to see these very unfortunate people who had been affected by that destruction. I even found myself crying a couple times, which is sad. I'm almost crying just thinking about it. So it made me very, very sad and angry. But on the other hand, working with such a wonderful group of about 200 Ukrainians, most of them 20 years old, 25 years old, was so inspiring to see all those people coming together, that although the overall experience was very sad and so on, there was a sense of joy and fellowship and happiness in getting to meet all these wonderful people. I did not feel unsafe. First of all, I have a military background. I was in the Army for about 12 years in the U.S. Army. I know a little bit about warfare and how these things work. And of course, at any moment in time, all of us could be struck by lightning or struck by a bomb or something. The chance of that happening, I felt in this environment, was very low. So I never felt fearful. The closest I came to feeling fear really was in Lviv on Independence Day. Most of the day there were air raid sirens, and there were threats that Russia might use that day as a way to make a statement and bomb distant places like Lviv. But even then, I just worked in my apartment and just kind of worked through this air raid siren. So no, I never really felt unsafe. I know a fair number of Ukrainian people, with some level of closeness. Most people have some of the same ambitions and motivations, like they want to provide for their family. They want their children to grow up healthy and safe. They want to have a warm and safe and comfortable place to live and work, and they want work that's interesting and motivating. So at that level, I think there's more similarities than differences. One of the differences is that when I interact with Ukrainians, they seem to be a little bit more focused on interpersonal relationships and talking and spending time together and telling stories. Americans seem to be more busy. Like, it's always about work and what's going on and what's the next thing that we have to accomplish. It seems to be more task oriented, more business oriented. Whereas when I'm working with Ukrainians, there's a time to relax and a time to get together and enjoy each other's friendship. And I see more of that in Ukraine than I do actually in the United States. And also, I think there's a level of kindness that I perceive in Ukraine, which is also seen in the United States, but I see it more universally in Ukraine. When we started the work, I wasn't sure just, how serious the work was going to be. But one of the things that really impressed me was just how hard everybody worked. In the second weekend that we worked, I believe the work was scheduled for 2 days. And I think we finished everything they wanted us to do in half the time in one day. So, everybody was working so very hard, and no one was, really like oh, I don't have to work hard. So the other thing that really has always impressed me with the Ukrainians, including those I've worked with in Lviv and those I met on this last trip, was they're very hard workers and they very much take the work seriously. The United States has really been blessed with, tremendous natural resources, peace and prosperity. And certainly some of that is due to the hard work of Americans, but a lot of that is because we've just been blessed with a great situation. We've never had an outside war on our land. So we've lived in relative peace. We have all these natural resources. There's so many advantages that Americans have that I think, from my perspective, it is fair to say that we have been given much as Americans. We've been given much. Some of it we've earned, but a lot of it has been given to us. And because of that, I think much is expected of us. And if the United States just generates this great wealth and then uses it for their own pleasure and their own desires and the things that make them happy, then we've really failed as a civilization, as a society. That's not, in my view, how Americans should be using or spending or investing this prosperity. Because we have been given so much, we should be sharing that. We should be doing good things around the world. And I'm very proud of our country when we do those things. And I'm very disappointed in our country when we say, that's not my problem. I don't have to worry about that. That's somewhere far away in the world. That's not really something that I need to, fix. And I'm more in favor of the United States using this great wealth and power for the benefit of all mankind, regardless of where that is. So that's a philosophical point that I believe very strongly in. That's the first way I'd answer the question. But the second way is, if we believe that Ukraine does not have anything to do with the future of the United States, we are greatly mistaken. Ukraine happens to be now at the epicenter of this real war of philosophies and really, if you will, thought processes and so on that are going on in the world. On one hand, you have this kind of Western thought that, democracy is the right way to govern a people, and that there should be a free and open press. People should be able to associate and do what they want and not be overly restricted by the government. And at the moment in time, Russia represents really almost the polar opposite of that idea, saying it's the government that's important, it's not the people. Or even a single person like Putin as a dictator says, I'm the one that's important and I'm going to make all of these decisions and force people to my will instead of listening to their will as we do in a democracy and doing what the people want instead of what I, Putin, want. Also, what you see in Russia right now is that when people don't agree with him, he just uses force and he kills them. And I'm not talking just about Ukrainians. I'm talking about his political adversaries. I'm talking about anybody he doesn't like. And so this is really a battleground of more than just Ukraine. This is a battleground of what the next future of the human race is going to be. Are we going to be dominated by democracies, which are sometimes faulty, and they do have their problems, but they're a much better system and a much more ethical and moral system? Or are we going to be dominated by the likes of Putin, who just kills anybody that he doesn't like, or if they have something he wants, he just murders them? Which of these do we want? And if we're not willing to fight for that, then that's a very sad reflection on the state of humanity. There are a lot of people in the U.S. that want to help, and there are a lot of those who are volunteering to house families and provide support. I think there's always a danger in any crisis that as time goes on, people lose focus on that crisis. And that's my biggest concern actually for Ukraine, is that with this going on now for several months, that it's just no longer on the front page of the news every day. And so we kind of lose that focus. So I'm absolutely interested in helping in any way I can. And I think a lot of people are, but we also have to keep Ukraine really in the focus so that people don't lose track of it. I've actually had a couple people ask me recently, oh, is the war still going on? Because they're not reading the paper every day, and they're kind of losing that focus. I don't know how I can communicate how a country that's not my homeland, that I didn't really even understand 10 years ago, how much it means to me personally. And I'm really willing to do just about anything to help Ukraine. I'm even considering maybe moving there someday, working there someday. So I just love Ukraine. That's my bottom line.